Hello. Hi, Jeff and Ellen. It's good to see everybody. Sorry, readjusting my setup here. I don't like to block the Buddha. Buddha is much more important than I am. Hi, Justice. As always, we'll begin with the verse of the Kesa. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Gata of Atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Three vows. Fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present. It fills our sacred space, guards our minds from wrong thinking. Fragrance of this incense unites us with virtue, mindfulness, and wisdom. We offer it on behalf of all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for refuge. Being one with the Buddha, I resolve to each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for refuge. Being one with the Dharma, the gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. Goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for refuge. Being one with the Sangha, in the spirit of universal fellowship, and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none, through anger or ill will, wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depth, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. We'll do a 20-minute silent meditation tonight. After I set the timer. Hello to everyone I hadn't already said hello to. Oh, forgot the dedication. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now. In reciting the sutras, hearing the Dharma, and training the mind, great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting three treasures, all ancestors of this Sangha, and all beings in the Dharma world. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. Let their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, and those ministering to the sick and the grieving. We pray for those suffering from violence, for the oppressed, for the imprisoned, and for all refugees. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukha jivino katang punya phalang maihang sabe bagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings springing from the good we have done. So I wanted to talk about the Dhammapada, verses 1 and 2. I can't remember why I thought this would be a good idea, but for some reason, one of these verses came up in a conversation or something, and I thought, I haven't talked about the Dhammapada in here much, and these particular verses are very well known. They're quite famous. It's one of those internet memes that actually comes from somewhere. A lot of the time you see these sayings floating around that are attributed to Buddha, and this is one of them. It actually does come from Buddhism. So the first verse is, phenomena are preceded by the heart, ruled by the heart, made of the heart. If you speak or act with a corrupted heart, then suffering follows you, as the wheel of the cart follows the track of the ox that pulls it. By the way, a lot of the time you'll see this translated as mind instead of heart. In Pali and Southeast Asian languages, the heart and the mind are not seen as two different things. In fact, if you ask the abbot at the Thai temple, where I've spent a lot of time, something about the mind, when he points to the mind, he'll point here, the mind. We think of the mind as being in here. The mind is here. So this is the second verse. Phenomena are preceded by the heart, ruled by the heart, made of the heart. If you speak or act with a calm, bright heart, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. So, with this word phenomena, basically, a lot of the time you'll see it translated as all things are preceded by the mind. And that's basically, dharma's a phenomena. Everything that arises is preceded by the mind. And this is maybe a little bit confusing, but let me give you the backstory of these, the backstories. Each of them has a separate story. So the first one, verse 1, the story of Tara Chakupala. Sorry, one of those Pali words that's hard to say. So Tara, by the way, Thera, is the root of Theravada, which basically means elder. So Theravada is the way, Vada is way, to the way of the elders. And so it was talking about an elder monk, a monk of some accomplishment who had been a monk for a while. And the Buddha said, verse 1, in reference to him, and Tara Chakupala came to pay homage to the Buddha at the Jatavada monastery, which is where the Buddha was staying at the time. And then one night, while pacing up and down in meditation, he accidentally stepped on some insects. So he was doing walking meditation. And this is a lot of you. Some of you have done walking meditation with me. It's basically you're walking in with great attention, just as you would meditate on your breath. You're meditating on walking. So he's doing walking meditation, uh, and um, and in the morning. And remember, he was blind, so he's doing walking meditation, and he's blind. And in the morning, some monks came to visit him, and they saw these dead insects and realized that he had killed these insects. And so they thought badly of him. And they went to see the Buddha, and they told the Buddha about it, that this elder monk had stepped on some bugs. And the Buddha said, Did you see Chakapala killing the insects? And they hadn't, because he killed them at night while he was doing walking meditation. And so the Buddha said, well, just as you didn't see him killing, so also he had not seen those living insects. And besides, as he has already become an arahant, so he was already fully enlightened, no more fetters, no more mental taints, mental stains on his consciousness. And so since he had already become an arahant, he could have no intention of killing. And so is quite innocent. And the other monks then asked, well, if he's an arahant, if he's that enlightened, if he's that pure of any negative things in his mind, how does it happen that he's blind? The idea being, that back then you would see, and today in some schools of Buddhism, you see any negative, any obstacle, physical obstacle, mental obstacle, or whatever that you're experiencing as a result of previous negative karma. So how could this arahant, who is blameless and faultless, how is he blind? And the Buddha explained that Chakapala was a physician in one of his past existences. And at one time, he had deliberately made a female patient blind. So the deal is, she had promised to become his servant, and her children basically offered herself into what we would have called 100 years ago indentured servancy. You sort of owe someone your labor in return for something. If he could cure her eyes, she was losing her eyesight. She wanted them cured, and so she told the doctor, "If you can fix my eyesight, then I and your children will be basically yours." And so then the doctor cured her eyesight, and then she decided she didn't want to basically be indentured to this doctor. And so she told him that her eyes were getting worse. She lied to him. Well, the physician, the doctor, knew she was lying. He could tell that she was lying. And so he gave her an ointment that basically did ruin her eyesight. This was in a previous life, this monk. And so as a result of that, he lost his eyesight many times in later existences. And so that's when the Buddha said, phenomena are preceded by the heart, ruled by the heart, made of the heart. You speak or act with a corrupted heart, then suffering follows you, as the wheel of the cart follows the track of the ox that pulls it. So, these stories, like the backstories of the Dhammapada, they're not a part of the discourses. They're in the commentaries on the discourses, and there's probably a reason for that. They're probably not. They're probably more like folk tales than actual discourses, but they're meant to sort of, explain something, or elaborate on something. And so this is one of those. But the point of this is that if you act out of an intention determined by greed, hatred, delusion, then you're going to experience the results of that. And that's basically what it's saying. So when we start our our service. What do we start with? We after the verse of the Kesa, we atone for any prior greed, hatred, and ignorance, going back to beginningless time. So the actual words are, all evil karma committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. So we can't be perfect. But if we accept that where we are is the result of what we've done before, and if we kind of own up to, now that's, I'm not victim blaming. There are bad things happen to people. That's not their fault. Okay. It's not that. But for the most part, the suffering that we experience is a result of our state of mind. And so if we act out, evil karma based on greed, anger, and ignorance, actions that are based on those things are going to have a bad result. They're going to have a bad result in the world that we are existing in, that we're acting within, and they're going to have a bad effect on us too. So, anger arises. Attachment arises. We see something, we want it. We all have irrationalities. It says delusion or ignorance is the way this is usually defined. But if you think in terms of modern psychology, the source of a lot of our suffering is thinking things that really aren't quite aligned with reality. And that's what that means, So Albert Ellis would have called it irrationality. Some of the cognitive people would call it something different, but it's basically thinking something that is harmful and self-defeating, not aligned with the way things really are. Thinking that people, well, anyway, I won't go into all of that tonight. But so the second verse is a much more positive verse, right? So it says, so there was a young Brahmin. So Brahmins, was the highest social group. The caste system wasn't quite what it is today. During the Buddhist time, it was going there. And so the Brahmins were held in very high esteem. And basically, these were the priest caste. These were the people who were supposed to be closest to gods. Yeah, thinking errors. Albert Ellis and REBT called them irrationalities. So the same, very similar things. Anyway, so Mata Kundali was a young Brahmin, and his father was very stingy, and he never gave to charity. So he didn't give alms to monks or any of that kind of stuff. He was very stingy. Even the gold ornaments that he gave his son to wear, he made them himself, so he wouldn't have to pay craftsmen to make them and that sort of thing. So when his son got sick, no physician was consulted because he didn't want to pay for a physician, and it was too late. His son was dying. And so the father, Adina Pubaka was his name, realized that his son, Mata Kundali, and you don't have to remember these names, it's not going to be a test, realized that he was dying, and so he had him carried outside and put on the veranda. And he did that so that people coming by the house to pay their respects wouldn't come in the house, because he was afraid that they would see his belongings and come back to steal them or whatever. He was that stingy. So greed, anger, ignorance, he was a pretty good example of greed. So the Buddha got up from meditation and went on an alms round, and he saw Mata Kundali lying on the veranda. And so he stood near the door of his father's house. So the Buddha realized somehow, it describes it as through his psychic power, but who knows how. You might have known him from before or whatever. But at any rate, in some way, he realized that this young Brahmin was really a good guy, and that he had studied and practiced a lot, and was very somewhat advanced. And so he sent forth a ray of light to attract his attention. And so the young man turned around, saw the Buddha, and he was very weak. But what the Buddha had done, and to show him this ray of light and stuff like that, had really affected him, had touched him. And so he was too weak to do anything, to get up and bow or anything like that. But he mentally professed his faith in the Buddha. And so, and that was enough. Because of that, when he died, with his heart in devotion to the Buddha, he was reborn in one of the celestial worlds, one of the Deva heavens, really nice place to be born. Well, so the Devas can kind of see what's going on Earth if they want to. And so he saw his father mourning him at the cemetery. And so he appeared to him in a likeness of his old self. He just sort of appeared there in a vision. And he told his father that he had been reborn in this heaven realm. And he urged him to invite the Buddha to a meal. So he did. Adena Pubhaka invited the Buddha over for a meal and invited other people to come in. He was having some remorse, over his treatment of his son and over the way he had lived his life. And, so I guess he was opening up a little bit, realizing that he was mortal, needed to get his act together, right? So he had people over, but then this question came up when the Buddha was there about whether or not one could be reborn in a heaven realm simply by mentally professing profound faith in the Buddha, without doing anything good or observing moral precepts or whatever for a long period of time. Would this act of faith actually get you to heaven? And so the Buddha willed that Mata Kundali would appear in person. And so he came fully decked out in all of his, Dewa garb. Devas are sort of like angels, basically. And so, he would appear very covered in jewels or in whatever, and very, very celestial looking stuff. And so he appeared and he said, "Now I've been reborn in the Deva world." And the people listening became so convinced that the son of this Brahmin had been reborn a Deva. And so they all became followers of the Buddha. And Adena Pubhaka, because of this exchange, he actually made progress. So he became, he transitioned from the heaven realms into becoming an arhat himself. And so the Buddha spoke this verse, said, "Phenomena are preceded by the heart, ruled by the heart, made of the heart. If you speak or act with a calm, bright heart, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves." So it's really interesting that I was reading that at the same time I'm, been reading with the Thursday night people. We've just finished the Tana show, which is the sayings of Shenron, or a collected sayings of Shenron and some commentaries about them. And I'm reading, I happened across a book that was in the Stetson Library about by the guy who translated the version of the Tana show that we read. And it's really, it really is delving into faith as a way of transforming. And a lot of Americans who come to Buddhism, you start talking to them about a path of faith, and they're not real interested in that, because it sounds a lot like, a lot of the religion that they grew up with. Believe this and everything's going to be okay. But this is faith in a different way. It's faith is in a way of really kind of opening up the way you live your life. And I think that there are people in many religious traditions who experience that kind of faith, understanding the compassion of the world that we're all recipients of, whether we know it or not. We have air to breathe, and that's because we live in a compassionate world, right? And in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism, the way Shinran talked about it is he would say things like, a good person, the person who, as these people were questioning the Buddha, said, well, can you really go to heaven without making a bunch of offerings and without taking precepts and without, meditating a lot and all that? Can you really get into heaven just through faith? And the Buddha goes, yes. So this is kind of an example of that. If you can, but that's not faith as in, well, I believe that if I bow to the Buddha, I'm going to be reborn in the Pure Land. It's faith that if I stop clinging to this stuff that brings me back to suffering, if I surrender my ego, basically, to the realization of oneness, then, that is the Pure Land. Shinran talks about that in a very interesting way. He says, it was comparing evil to rivers. And, I wish I could remember how he put it. Uno, the guy who translated the Tanna Show, talks about this. He says that when Shinran, at one point he left, I know this is confusing. If you're new to this, the Dhammapada is from the Pali Canon. It's very much the Eightfold Pathway of liberation. And then I'm talking about Pure Land Buddhism, which is much evolved down the line, like 1,200 years down the line or more. But the roots of that are in the Pali Canon. In fact, I was just reading something. I can't remember what it was, but I know. It was in the Anapanasati Sutra. It talks about being reborn in the Pure Land, which is where non-returners go. So you don't have to remember that. It's not terribly important. It's just that, all this stuff that comes up later on in the Mahayana Buddhism is in the original teachings of the Buddha. And so this idea of faith as a method of transformation and therefore liberation is present all through, all the way back 2,500 years ago when the Buddha was giving discourses. But what does faith mean? It doesn't just mean, I say the words, I light the candles, I light the incense, I make the vows. It's when I do those, I'm embodying the Buddha. I'm embodying the Dharma. I'm embodying the Sangha. And that's the kind of faith we're talking about. And it takes effort to get to that. It's very easy to declare yourself a Buddhist. It's really hard to surrender yourself to Buddhism. But so I was going to tell you what Shinran said about the rivers. He said, so apparently he at some point was like sent into exile, and he went up to northern Japan and he saw the ocean for the first time. And it's the Sea of Japan, which is between Japan and Russia, I think. Anyway, it's apparently really, really rough in the winter. Lots of storms come through, big waves, cold weather, cold winds, all that kind of thing. And then in the summer, it's clear and calm. And Shinran saw this, and he sort of saw this as an example of sort of two sides of humanity. One side is if you speak or act with a corrupted heart, suffering follows you like the wheel of the cart follows the track of the ox. That's that stormy sea. And then in the summer, it becomes calm and beautiful and clear and pleasant. That's if you speak or act with a calm, bright heart, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. And it's the same ocean. And that was what kind of, woke Shinran up. It's like, it's the same ocean, very different manifestations of things. And then there's a poem, and I wish I'd thought about it. I'd have printed that out so I could read it to you. But he's talking, he says, all the rivers reach the same ocean, and they all take on the same taste. So all people, all actions can reach the same ocean of compassion and of the Amitabha. He's talking about Amitabha Buddha, and they all have the same taste of wisdom, even those that come from the heights of delusion and anger and greed. And Uno talks about that. He says, that the analogy he uses is that when you see nirvana from the place of an ordinary person who's living greed and anger and delusion, then nirvana and samsara, the cycle of coming and going, look like two different things. But if you look back at the rivers, from the position of the ocean, if you look at life from the place of nirvana, from the realization of oneness, from the glimpsing of the deathless, then you see there's no difference. It's both the same thing. It just kind of depends on where you're looking at it from. So, now how do we work with this? What do you do with this? Well, remember, if you're speaking and acting with a calm, bright heart, then happiness follows you like a shadow that never leaves. And, if you can bring some faith to that, you can believe that you live in a world where you're supported by compassion, where you get, even when you're not perfect, even when you recognize that you have spoken and acted and thought with a corrupted heart, you recognize that it's still here for you, even if you're not perfect. In fact, because you're not perfect, it's still here for you. Then you can get that happiness that follows you like a shadow that never leaves. So anyway, I just I hope that this was useful to you and that I just didn't go all over the place and not get anywhere. But these things have been kind of working through my mind for the last week or so, and I wanted to share them with you. So thank you for your presence. Thank you for your attention. And I hope that there has been something useful for you here. So we'll say the 4 great vows. Creations are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to transform them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Friends, I respectfully remind you that life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passes by and opportunity is lost. Each of us must strive to awaken. Awaken. Take heed. Do not squander this life. See you next week, not before.